recognize the member for Oak Bay Golden Head.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I bound to my feet in enthusiasm to speak in support of Bill 37, the Miscellaneous Statutes Amendment Act No. 2, 2015. Like my colleague from Nanaimo, I have been waiting many months to read about the many provisions that have been made here with respect to commas and periods. Now, Honourable Speaker, I take social media very, very seriously, and I believe it's important as legislators for us to engage our constituents and ask them what their views are on bills. So I form my opinion based on the opinions of the constituents and the input I get from talking to my staff and so forth. Now, Honourable Speaker, I had a torrent of information come my way about really more enthusiasm as to this bill. I had a couple of other suggestions that I think are relevant, and I think a couple of them should be read in because there are new ideas that the people of British Columbia are bringing to this government. They've offered me an opportunity to give this government some more ideas for bills that they can bring forward this session to complete the legislative agenda. Here's a couple. I quite like these. From a fellow called Dave Hutchinson, Honourable Speaker. He suggested Bill 39 be introduced, an act to replace the dash with a semicolon. I'm impressed with that. We've also suggested Bill 40, the Act to Eliminate Redundancies Act. Quite clever, actually. We've had a comment from an Andrew Park who was quite taken aback by the fact that the government's agenda seems so void of ideas, that he said, what's up next? A bill to outlaw the selling of Twinkie bars in months that have 2 full moons. Now, Honourable Speaker, you will not believe it. It must have been a boring day on Facebook, because a discussion ensued as to whether or not you could still buy Twinkie bars in Canada after that comment. That's the state and level of the discussion that this bill is provoking in British Columbia. Turns out, Honourable Speaker, there is good news. I was able to provide my constituents with an address that they could write to order Twinkies online. But it doesn't end there, Honourable Speaker. There have been other ideas. Truly my favorite, Honourable Speaker, which we could debate for probably a couple of days, was suggested to me by my press secretary. That would be Bill 41. And those, going back as far as my fellow alumnus Pierre Burton, 1937 grad from Oak Bay that I mentioned in a statement today. Sadly, and ironically, just a sidebar, Honourable Speaker, with respect to statement, for the first time in recorded memory, the Hansard blacked out. But it didn't black out, Honourable Speaker. It greened out. A green screen came up through my statement, and so it's no longer available as a video with other than a green screen there. Appropriate? Perhaps it's seeing something in the future, I don't know. But let's come back to the bill. I move off it. Bill 41, Matt Wright, Press Secretary. The double space after a period reenactment Bill 2015. Say it again, the double space after a period reenactment Bill 2015. That's an issue that we should debate. Some people sloppily only put one space after a period. Within the legislation here, there's sometimes two spaces, sometimes one. We should have consistency on this. Consistency. Bill 42, the Willful and Willingly Act of Willingness Act, 2014-15. Bill 43, the Healthy Heath Act, 2015. And one that I'd like to expand upon further, Bill 44, 2 L's or 1 Act of Decision, 2015. Let me expand upon that a bit more, Honourable Speaker. Because, you know, we wonder whether willful was willingly and willfully worded wisely in the bill brought before us. And why I say that is that it appears, Honourable Speaker, as the member from Nanaimo pointed out, that government has chosen to pay tribute to my former alumnus, Pierre Burton, from Oak Bay, but has done so not consistently. It turns out, Honourable Speaker, there are a further 15 acts that have spelt willful wrong. One of them being, Honourable Speaker, and I say this with the deepest sadness and shame on the government, the School Act. Heaven forbid that the School Act is not being corrected to change the way willful is spelt. yet we are doing it in others. The Community Charter, Insurance Premium Act, Tax Act, the Local Government Act, the Logging Tax Act, the First Nation Final Agreement Act, the Mineral Tax Act, the Motor Fuel Act, Tax Act, the Perpetuity Act. I don't even know what some of these are. The Personal Property Security Act, the Property Transfer Tax Act, Railway Act, Tobacco Act, Tax Act. We're amending that one. That's good. Trustee Act, and Tsawwassen First Nation Final Agreement Act. Why are we just willfully changing the spelling of willful in a couple of acts when staff, in a matter of literally maybe 30 seconds, maybe it was 45 seconds, did a simple Google search with cite:BC laws, and you can find all these other acts that have the misspelling. So I don't really quite know what's going on here, but it actually goes further, Honorable Speaker, because there's an inconsistency with the use of the number of L's and in other areas. Well, one of my staff researchers gave me a lot of fuel to actually further this discussion. Because, Honorable Speaker, fuel is either spelt with one L or two L's throughout the legislation in British Columbia. Honorable Speaker, that is fueled, sorry. It's sloppy. The Environment Act, the Environmental Management Act, the Clean Energy Act, the Motor Vehicle Act, the Safety Standards Act, and the Wildfire Act regulations, these regulations there, they have fuel spelled with double L's. Yet, and fueling is spelled with double L's in the Assessment Act, the Nisga'a Final Agreement Act, the Park Act, the Tsawwassen First Nation Final Agreement Act, the Clean Energy Act regulations, the Environmental Management Act regulations, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act regulations, the Utilities Commission Act regulations. Yet single L's in fueled are used in the Local Government Act, the Wildfire Act and regulations, the Workers' Compensation Act regulations, and fueling with single L's is used in the Forest and Range Practices Act regulations, the Wildfire Act and regulations, and so forth. In fact, what's even worse, Honorable Speaker, is in some, double L's are used and single L's are used, and so it's not only inconsistent across laws, but within laws. The same thing as you travel through these documents, you quickly realize that traveled indeed also is spelt with single L's or double L's, and I won't belabor the point. But why I'm raising this, Honorable Speaker, the honorable member from Nanaimo, very honorable member, point out that as soon as I get downstairs, I will be tasking my staff to search color and labor, spelt with O-U-R-O-O-R, because this is critical. Honor, as multiple colleagues along Canada, it is the member from Cowichan Valley points out that, Honorable Speaker, this is a can of worms that it has been opened. British Columbians from Victoria to Fort Nelson, from Rossland to Haida Gwaii are going to be combing through BC bills looking for spelling mistakes. Honorable Speaker, we've already started with the School Act because we really wanted to find a few more spelling mistakes in the School Act. We'll work on it. It's a long act. We'll find a couple. But it's a challenge I put out today to all British Columbians. We've got nothing to do in this legislature. Go through the act, find the punctuation errors, find the spelling mistakes, send them to me, andrew.weaver.mla@ledge.bc.ca, and I will bring them to the legislature to enable discussion for months ahead as we debate the matters of importance to British Columbians. I'm getting comments on my email as not being correct from the member from Powell River Sunshine Coast. Oh, I'm sorry, I cannot say my name, and the member points out. But I think I was quoting an email. You could do, it's a good point. The email is member.memberslastname.mla, where I am that member, @ledge.bc.ca. Thank you to the member from Powell River Sunshine Coast. So with that, Honourable Speaker, I do encourage my fellow citizens of British Columbia to please spend hours, send us more of your money so that we can spend hours to go through with a fine-tooth comb and find those misplaced semicolons, to find those split infinitives, to rightly find those split infinitives, because that doesn't do justice to our fine English language. I really don't have much more to say on this, but I do realize that the people of British Columbia expect us to debate these issues, and I'm having a hard time filling up the time with any more substance here because I've just run out. I just don't know what to say. I honestly don't know what to say. Here I thought, being elected an MLA, you would actually debate matters of substance. You would actually, and I say debate matters of substance. Here we are talking about spelling, talking about red tape, while real issues affecting British Columbia go by. I would love to talk about LNG. I would love to talk about the fact that recent news article out of Malaysia points out that Petronas is actually going to move on to the mid-2020s. I'd love to talk about that. But no, we have to talk about punctuation. With that, I thank you, Honourable Speaker, for your time.